What's it really like to live in Montana? I've lived here my entire life and have traveled all over this state. So we're gonna jump in and find out what it's really like to live here. First, Montana's big, like really big. Montana's the fourth largest state in the country. It's 147,000 square miles. That's slightly larger than Japan. If you drive from the east side of the state to the west side of the state, that's gonna take you 10 hours. That's 700 miles. What's crazy is that with all this room, we only have just over 1 million people, which is about 7 people per square mile. So we really get to spread out and we really get to enjoy our state. We're not on top of everybody, and we get to go out and get away from everybody else and enjoy the state and enjoy the mountains. And that's one of my favorite things about living here. We get a lot of tourism in Montana. So we have 2 national parks that we all enjoy. And we have Yellowstone on the south, which is the first ever national park. It's famous for all of its buffalo and hot pots and natural geysers, hot springs, all of that stuff. And then we have Glacier National Park on the north, on the Canadian border. And that's just gonna be the biggest, grandest mountain scenery that you can imagine. It's pretty much what heaven's gonna look like if you believe in that. But it's just amazing. You have big natural glaciers there and a beautiful crystal clear lake. It's surreal. If you haven't been to Glacier National Park, add it to your bucket list. It's amazing. You don't want to do Glacier National Park and Yellowstone on the same trip though, unless you have quite a bit of time, because they're polar opposites of the state, and remember, Montana's big. Montana's built around the outdoors. We have all the entertainment you need, whether it's skiing or hiking or fishing or boating or snowmobiling or snowshoeing or ice climbing. If you name it, it's here. We have some of the most amazing fly fishing in the country. And if you want to enjoy the outdoors, Montana is the place for you. We have 4 seasons of entertainment, whether it's playing in the summer or getting out in the winter. And we don't have the traditional forms of entertainment though. Like there's no sports teams that are gonna be here. You know, we don't have an NFL team. You're not gonna go to a big stadium and watch, you know, a sporting event with 100,000 people. It's just not gonna happen here. We don't have that in Montana. But what we do have is some college football. So the Cat-Grizz rivalry is one of the longest lasting NCAA rivalries in the country, if not the longest. And people get pretty jacked about that, but that's nowhere near a professional level of football. One thing we do have though is rodeo. During the summer, you can go to any small town in Montana and there's likely gonna be a rodeo somewhere in that area, which is pretty awesome. We have some world-class bull riding, bareback riding, barrel racing, all of the rodeo things. And that's pretty fun in Montana. That's a great social event that happens here. Concerts can be few and far between. We don't attract the biggest talent, and when they do come here, it's typically them stopping off midweek. So we'll have like a Tuesday night concert, you know, as they're going from Denver to Seattle. They just stop in Montana, and really they just want to go see Yellowstone National Park. But we benefit from that by getting a midweek concert from time to time. But we're not going to get your big headline shows on a Friday night or Saturday night. They're going to come here midweek normally. So the climate is one thing that either attracts people to Montana or it scares them away. We do get all 4 seasons, but the longest season is winter. So from about end of November to December to April, sometimes into June, we get snow and you can expect it. But it's nice dry snow, which is really awesome for skiing. We get that nice fluffy light powder. We don't get that heavy wet snow that breaks all the branches off the trees. Every once in a while it'll be heavy and wet, don't get me wrong, but for the most part it's a nice fluffy powdery snow, which is just awesome. Same thing in the summer. It's a dry heat, so you can expect your average temperatures to be, you know, anywhere from the 60s to about 90 degrees during the summer. And we get, you know, evening thunderstorms a lot of the time that keeps it nice and cool. So a lot of people here don't even have air conditioners. You just open up your window at night, close it in the morning, and that'll keep your house cool through the rest of the day because it still cools off at night. It's not like going to Vegas, for instance, or anywhere else like, you know, Arizona, to where the nighttime temperature is still in the triple digits. That just doesn't happen here. So it's a dry heat though. So when you go outside, it's not like you're getting hit with all that humidity that you see in, you know, Tennessee or Florida that makes it just absolutely miserable. We actually get to enjoy it and get outside, and it's not miserable to be in. And then sometimes we get all 4 seasons in one day. Without a big body of water to normalize our temperatures, we get drastic swings. So you can wake up in the morning and it's gonna be about 35 degrees and rainy. By afternoon, it's 75 and sunny, and then that night it snows 3 inches. So you get a whole mix here, and it can be a little bit crazy. So they say if you don't like the weather in Montana, just wait 5 minutes, it'll change. Montana has a pretty big mix of cities and towns and just completely rural off the map areas. And so our biggest city is Billings, and that's 110,000-ish people. And you're gonna have a little bit more there with restaurants and stuff like that that just have the population. I'm in Bozeman, which is just about 50,000 people. Then we have Missoula, which I think is 75, 80,000 people. But for the most part, Montana is built up of small towns. You have, places like Pony, Montana, and you have all these little areas that are so cool to go through and make great stops for road trips, where it's, a one post office and one bar town, where there's not a whole lot of people there. The industry is built around agriculture. And you go in there and there's a nice 50s diner, not because they made it a 50s theme, it's because it's a true 50s diner where you can still go and get a handmade milkshake, and it's just that small town feel where you have the old original boardwalk still in place, and there's still hitching posts for horses. So it's a pretty cool state to explore. You can get out there. And the biggest thing about Montana is that the entire state just feels like one small town. Even when you're in the bigger city, people still know each other. You can strike up a conversation with anybody. It just has that small town vibe anywhere you go in the state. If I go over to Helena, to the capital, I might bump into somebody from Bozeman. It's just that kind of place to live in. One thing to expect if you're living in Montana is to have lots of windshield time. We're a big state, like we mentioned before, and that's gonna make it pretty long drives in between cities. We're spread out in Montana. So from Billings, if I'm gonna run over to Billings to either see family or if I wanna do some shopping or anything like that, it's a 2-hour drive. If I need to run up to Helena, it's an hour and a half. It's, you're gonna spend time on on the road driving and getting that windshield time in. But the difference in between Montana and other states is that hour drive, you're actually moving that entire time and moving quickly. It's not like you're stuck in traffic and it takes you 2 hours to get from one town to another. It's 2 hours, but that's because that's the distance that it takes to travel there, not just because you're waiting for everybody else that's also traveling there. We do have a pretty good construction season just because of how big our state is, that they need to always be working on big sections of roads. So you can expect delays and slowdowns due to construction, and that's just something that you deal with when you live here. One thing about Montana, and it probably doesn't even need said, but it's beautiful. Montana is amazing. When you get out in the mountains and you go on the rivers and the lakes, it's just a beautiful state to live in, especially when the mountains are snow-capped. It's just really an oasis, and that's what draws so many people to Montana. That's why there's been so many songs written about Montana and books and movies that are set here. It's just a beautiful place to live. Western Montana is a lot more mountainous, and we get those, that's where you're gonna see most of your postcards from Montana is in the Rocky Mountains on the western half of the state. The eastern half of the state, you're gonna get a lot more prairie and rolling hills and stuff like that, but also beautiful. It's just a different type, and just a different flavor of beauty. Because of how spread out Montana is, we don't have that one huge population center that's gonna draw in world-class restaurants. If you're in a good sized hub like Bozeman or Missoula or Billings, you can have some good restaurant options. But if you're in rural Montana, it's a lot of the time gonna be just like a little mom and pop shop diner and stuff like that. Some of them are amazing, don't get me wrong, and you'll find some of the best steaks in the world at some of these little mom and pop hole in the wall shops that they don't have a website. You're not gonna find them, but they're awesome eats. But for the most part, we're gonna be limited on restaurants. Montana is one of the most special states in our union. If you haven't been to Montana yet, you definitely need to check it out. And if you're thinking about moving here, anywhere in Montana, give me a call. I can get you hooked up on the right people to talk to and get you all the inside information that you need. I'm Kyler Harris in Bozeman, Montana with Keller Williams, and I'll talk to you soon.